knowledge, you're going to want to use it from time to time. So if the characters are actually contributing to the world and building their keeps or building their relationships, building their thieves guilds, building their wizards academies, they want to actually see those things develop, and they want to go there, they want to visit them. Once you've got them, once you've given them the carrot of here is your castle,
then you can take it away.
That's another reason why they're going to want to keep coming back week after week, is to see what they can do to that castle or what's going to be done to that castle.
So, I mean, I've played some games where, and Ars Magica comes to mind, where often those are location-based and you've got a whole bunch of people in one area, and it becomes about this communal existence and becomes very place-focused. But when you start doing things like letting one player go form his own thieves guild or take over the thieves guild, and another player go, take over the mercenary guild, do you find there's this desire to start splitting the party? Not in the sense like, okay, well, you go in the other room because I'm going to resolve the combat, but in the sense that y'all run 3 or 4 sessions with Bob because we really have this arc that's going to involve the Wizard's Castle, and no?
I don't find that to be a particular problem. I mean, one solution is that I have complete kind of player buy-in that I'm not going to fragment things, that everybody's stories can get woven back in. If someone is off doing something by themselves, I can handle it over email, offline, between sessions. I try.
Today we have to do Taxus because Rogar the fighter needs to pay his troops.
I've done that on a couple of occasions, but for the most part, I don't like to. In fact, I'd say the one place that my campaign has fallen down. So I'd like to give each character a place in the grand story that I'm telling. Every one of them, whether they knew it from the beginning or not, has an important role to play kind of in the overall structure of the plot. And one of them had that problem. And I never adequately managed to resolve it, so there was one character I ended up spending a little more time than I'd like just talking to her about her character's thing while everyone else watches with interest, but they're watching, they're not participating.
Right.
If I had to do it all over again, I would try harder to avoid that sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe take it offline.
And I was once in a campaign with another DM, and the campaign ended up being sort of the plot centered around my character as the high priest of a rising church and stuff, and it was a horrible idea because it really became like the Kevin Show. And he couldn't kill my character without
for you.
Well, no, because it wasn't that fun for me. He couldn't kill my character without disrailing the entire campaign.
Right.
And once I realized this, I threw myself into more and more ludicrous situations. So it turns out that he, at one point, changed his mind. But but it was a year or two before that happened, and it caused a lot of dissent on the other players. I don't think I'd do that again.
I think that, the players and the GM are all part of a sort of social contract. And one of the things that makes a great group, and if you don't have a great group, you're not going to have a long-term campaign, is that willingness for everybody to participate in the story that involves everybody. I mean, it's the GM's job to kind of oversee, like what Dorian was saying, make sure that everybody's got a role to play. But the people who are playing the characters also have a part to play in making sure that they invest their characters back into the fabric that's being woven out of all those stories.
How do you deal with, that implies a tremendous amount of investment from the players. And I haven't really been in enough campaigns where that's happened where I can say, yes, I agree completely, it's my total experience. I've been in a lot of campaigns where 2 or 3 people are phoning it in, and 3 or 4 people are really engaged, and they tend not to last forever because the 2 or 3 people who are phoning it in tend to disappear. How much player turnover have you guys had in all this time?
Very little.
Yeah, the only player turnover I've had is for people who ended up moving to the West Coast for work. Nobody's dropped out. I think anyone's dropped out, just dropped out.
Really?
In my 3rd edition game, I started, this is the 8-year game, I started with 8 players. By the end of the campaign, one of them was still one of the originals.
So you rotated people?
All the other 7 had basically rotated out.
How do you deal with introducing new characters?
Well, that's easy. A lot of that sort of work done by the player. I listen to them, I figure out what they want to play, and if my world is sort of big enough or there's enough going on, I can usually find some way or some hook by which they get dropped in. And I don't dwell on it, I don't fuss over it, I don't lose sleep over it. Sometimes it can seem a little artificial at first. They just sort of, you look trustworthy. That's the thing. players are
Yeah.
okay with that, then it's okay by me. I'd rather just keep the story moving and maybe start to fill in some of the backstory later on. Not everything has to be front load.
Right.
With my 4th edition game, which has been going on since 2007, I've got 17 players.
All at the table at the same time? No.
Split into 2 groups.
Okay.
It's still lots.
8 and 9.
And in 8 and 9, in one group I've got 3 that were original, and the other one I got 4. So, and the same thing. New players will come in, I'll say, what do you want to play? They'll say, oh, well, I'm not sure, give me some ideas about what's based on the campaign. I said, no, just tell me what you want to play, the campaign can handle it.
And do they get like a giant debriefing from the other players? Like, okay, here's a beer, here's what you missed.
No, my players aren't that nice. My players aren't that nice. Usually they get a bit of a debriefing from me, because there is throwing somebody in cold to a campaign that's been going on for years, just to make them comfortable with what's going on. Usually I'll sit them down and I'll say, here's the stuff that's probably personal to your character that you know about the setting. Here are some of the movers and shakers that the party is dealing with and why, and how your character might fit into that. I usually also give them what might be their interpretation of some things happening in the campaign that none of the other players know about. So that when they come into the game, they are bringing information that the rest of the party considers instantly valuable. And suddenly their value in the party is cemented right from the get-go.
I mean, is there ever a point where you want to tag out? I mean, it's one thing when a player has to move away. I mean, have there ever been times when you put these long campaigns on a hiatus, or let somebody else DM for a story arc and then switch it back up?
The first campaign that I described, there was actually 2 DMs. That was myself and a friend of mine, and we ran it together. So he was able to...
Like at the table together?
At the table, yeah. We actually ended up having 14 people in that group. It started with 4, it ended with, I think, 8, and the original 4 were still there, but it actually grew to 14 at one point. People would come, we were in high school, we were playing at the University Dungeons and Dragons Club, and guys from the University Dungeons and Dragons Club would come down to watch us run, 14 people. One of us would sit at the screen.
You guys are the coolest guys on campus.
Every Friday night, that's who we were. Because everybody else was
How many of your players were girls?